a lively town continued its routine, while an S-rank party remained occupied elsewhere. Near a closed room, several members grew curious about Mards's long study session. Surrounded by books, Mards searched for knowledge that could improve the party's strength. Approaching footsteps broke the silence. Recognizing his teammates, Mards paused his research as the members of Sword of Divine Silver arrived. Mards reflected on his teammates' remarkable abilities, each empowered by numerous borrowed skills that made the party exceptionally strong. Together, the four members achieved extraordinary results through perfect coordination and overwhelming power. Unlike them, Mards possessed only skill lender, having given nearly all his abilities to support the party. Years of study filled his private room with books as he continued searching for new skills to learn. Meanwhile, several teammates dismissed his efforts, overlooking the sacrifices that helped maintain their success. Rumors spread through the party, and Mards realized many members no longer considered him necessary. After enduring their growing doubts, he quietly reached a decision about his future. Remembering a dangerous labyrinth expedition, he recalled how success had made everyone overconfident. As their achievements grew, the others ignored his warnings and believed their strength alone secured victory. Despite everything, Mards completed his duty and lent valuable skills to each teammate before the next challenge. The party gathered before departure, showing little concern for Mards's condition after keeping him waiting. Suppressing his frustration, he accepted their treatment and focused on the task ahead. Drawing on years of effort, Mards announced that he would share 12 newly learned skills with everyone. Powerful light spread through the room as skill lender activated around the group. While the others watched, the lending process began, marking a turning point for the party's future. Glowing skill records appeared before each member as the transfer process advanced smoothly. Streams of energy flowed toward the party, granting every borrowed skill Mards had prepared. Moments later, the lending ritual ended, leaving the group surrounded by newly acquired power. Excitement quickly replaced caution as the members focused on conquering the next dungeon. Without offering gratitude, they left together discussing future victories, while Mards quietly watched them walk away. After hours of study, hunger finally reminded Mards that he had neglected even the simplest needs. Reaching the dining hall, he collected the meal prepared under the party's name. Opening the container, he found stale bread and watered soup that had clearly been left behind. Accepting the situation without complaint, Mards listened as preparations for the next expedition continued. Soon, the party entered the Devil's Abyss, where Mards was ordered to stay back while the others advanced into danger. While monsters gathered nearby, Mards was ordered to stay out of the way and avoid interfering with the battle. Empowered by borrowed abilities, Ultra unleashed Sword Saint and charged forward with confidence. The attack swept through the enemy group, cutting down numerous monsters in an instant. Watching from behind, Mards noticed the skills being used without any acknowledgement of their source. Recalling his years of study, he reflected on how skills grew stronger through repeated use and constant improvement. Mards recalled that unique skills were extremely rare and possessed abilities far beyond ordinary techniques. Stories about unique skills spread widely because their effects often defied common understanding. Among them, Skill Lender allowed Mards to grant his learned abilities to other people. Although he could learn many skills himself, their true power emerged when specialized teammates used them. Believing this role was valuable, Mards devoted years to mastering countless skills so he could support the party's growth. Mards remembered joining Sword of Divine Silver because of his rare ability. Yet Ultra's attitude changed after gaining borrowed power. During the expedition, the party treated Mards as little more than a servant, mocking him whenever he struggled. Advancing deeper into the Devil's Abyss, the group dismissed the dungeon's reputation and underestimated its dangers. Protected by powerful skills, they ignored traps and obstacles with growing confidence. Meanwhile, Mards quietly endured the poisonous environment. Aware that the threat was greater than the others believed, Mards understood that the party survived the poisonous floor only because of skills he had researched and shared with them. Ignoring their mockery, he kept his distance, knowing several borrowed skills depended on staying within range. As predicted, the poison began affecting some members. Yet Mards restrained himself from reacting. Deeper inside the dungeon, the path suddenly divided into multiple routes. When confusion spread among the group, Mards suggested a useful scouting skill. Trying to explain the dungeon's mechanics, Mards realized Ultra possessed many borrowed skills without understanding their functions. His warning was ignored again, and the blame for the delay was placed entirely on him. Rather than argue further, Mards relied on Scout's intuition and accepted that nobody would listen. The scouting skill activated, sending information ahead through the branching passages. After receiving the results, Ultra identified a large door on the right path and led the party forward. Following the chosen route, the party arrived before a massive sealed gate guarded by a dragon. like creature. Mards recognized the significance of the discovery and remembered the sacrifices that made reaching this place possible. Determined not to waste those lives, he focused on understanding the room's true danger. While the others admired the boss chamber, Mards noticed unusual details and sensed something was wrong. For the first time in a long while, the party asked Mards to explain what he had discovered. After hearing Mards's explanation, the party confirmed they had reached the deepest section of the Devil's Abyss. Instead of discussing strategy, Ultra suddenly assigned Mars the role of vanguard. The order stunned him, as it effectively meant entering the boss chamber alone. Ultra treated the decision as obvious and showed no concern for the danger involved. Unable to understand the logic, Mars questioned the plan while sensing something far worse was about to happen. When Mars questioned the order, Ultra responded by bringing up a guild rule that could force his retirement. Mars recalled the strict regulations governing adventurer parties and the penalties tied to leaving them. Because he was entering his 7th year with the group, a large severance payment would be owed if he retired. Ultra emphasized the reward involved, making the threat feel less like concern and more like pressure. Mars realized the discussion was no longer about strategy, but about pushing him out. Fury finally overcame Mars as he refused to accept the party's attempt to discard him. After years of loyalty, turning toward the others, he demanded to know whether they truly supported the leader's decision. One by one, the members admitted they would follow the majority's choice despite their doubts. Their answers shattered Mars's remaining trust and made his sacrifices feel meaningless. Desperate to stop them, he tried reminding the party how much they depended on his support. Ultra finally revealed his true view, describing Mars as a burden holding the party back from greater success. Hearing those words, Mars realized the years he spent supporting the group meant nothing to them. Painful memories flooded his mind as every sacrifice and effort was reduced to a disadvantage. Confident of replacing him, Ultra openly demanded results and pushed him toward retirement. After a long silence, Mars accepted their decision, but he prepared to make one final request first. At last, Mars demanded the return of every skill he had lent to the party throughout the years. The others mocked the request, believing he had no way to reclaim anything before his defeat. Remaining calm, Mars instructed them to respond with a single command if they accepted. Once the words were spoken, Skill Lender activated and began reversing the agreement. Confident and unaware of the consequences, each member willingly returned the borrowed skills to Mars. As the repayment began, strange energy gathered around the party, and the first signs of panic appeared. A system message confirmed the repayment process, proving that Mars's demand was far from empty words. While the others waited confidently, Mars listened to the unseen voice that governed Skill Lender. The return continued, and Mars reminded them that borrowed skills carried a repayment condition. Then he revealed the true cost. Every loan accumulated heavy interest over time, far beyond the original amount. Mars explains that the borrowers forgot an important detail. The skill debt kept growing with interest for 6 years. Ilya calculates the repayment and realizes the amount owed is enormous. The party tries to justify their decision to remove Mars, claiming they had already considered the consequences. Mars reveals the crucial truth. The interest is not simple interest, but compound interest. The realization hits Ilya immediately as she understands that the repayment cost is far greater than anyone expected. Mars explained the difference between simple and compound interest. Using an example, he demonstrated how compound interest increased the base amount every cycle, causing continuous growth. Ilya dismissed the concern at first, believing the difference was too small to matter during repayment. After calculating the numbers over several years, she realized the debt had expanded to a terrifying level. Recognizing her talent, Mars watched calmly as Ilya quickly understood the mechanism and grasped the true scale of their mistake. Mars suddenly rushed toward the boss room entrance while the others were still focused on the confrontation behind him. Moments later, the massive door began to open, revealing a dark passage leading deeper into the dungeon. Without hesitation, he slipped through the opening and crossed the threshold before anyone could stop him. Ilya hurried forward and tried to reach him before the entrance sealed shut. The gap closed completely, leaving Mars alone inside the boss chamber, while the others arrived too late. After the boss room sealed, the repayment system activated automatically. The skill retrieval process began, collecting an enormous amount of interest from Ultra and placing a crushing burden on him. As countless borrowed skills returned at once, the strain overwhelmed his body and his consciousness started to fade. An emergency safety mechanism activated before he completely collapsed, transferring his awareness elsewhere. Inside a silent white space, he remained alone while the relocation process finished. He soon learned the protected area existed within his mind. The voice revealed it possessed a configured personality, surprising him with its human-like responses. As the brain recovery neared completion, He wondered who had created the mysterious system guiding him. The unseen presence admitted it had watched over him for years, and wished for his future to shine. It explained that it had witnessed everything through his eyes and hoped his stolen time would become strength. Hearing those words, he realized someone had always been observing and understanding his struggles from afar. The healing process ended, and he realized someone had always watched over him more closely than anyone else. Before leaving the strange space, he asked for the name of the unseen presence that had guided him. Receiving the answer, he accepted it and prepared to return to reality. Elsewhere, a group discussed Mars while moving deeper into the Devil's Abyss. After assessing the situation, one member urgently concluded that eliminating him as soon as possible was the safest choice. The party dismissed Elia's warning, believing Mars would soon die without anyone needing to act. Confident in their leader's plan, the others mocked the idea of killing him themselves. Suddenly, Elia sensed something wrong and realized the poison was no longer working as expected. As panic spread, a healing skill that should have suppressed the poison failed to function. While the group struggled to understand the situation, a silent figure nearby showed the first sign of noticing the disturbance. Mars regained consciousness and noticed only an instant had passed while the boss remained motionless. Looking around the dim chamber, he realized his injuries had vanished and his condition was stable. The completed skill recollection flooded him with power, triggering the evolution of multiple abilities. A list of upgraded skills appeared, revealing the extent of his newfound strength. To understand his situation, Mars activated his enhanced vision and detected a mysterious throne ahead. Using his enhanced sight, Mars discovered the dungeon boss was the enormous snake dragon Vitre. He realized the labyrinth had been designed to weaken intruders with poison before forcing them to face the dragon. Despite the danger, Mars decided defeating the monster was necessary to claim the dungeon. A warning appeared, but confidence in his growing abilities pushed him forward. Then he recalled an old legend describing a white dragon that could not be killed by ordinary means. Viritra launched a sudden attack, forcing Mars to evade with spatial jump at the last moment. The dragon's massive body swept across the chamber, barely missing him as he repositioned. Realizing speed alone was insufficient, Mars activated 6 arms of Asura to strengthen his offense. The summoned arms caught the dragon's charge and halted its advance through brute force. Pressing the advantage, Mars rushed forward and struck Vritra directly, beginning the battle in earnest. Despite Mars's assault, Vritra endured the attack and crashed back onto the battlefield. Watching the dragon recover, he realized ordinary skills were unlikely to defeat such a monster. A system message confirmed all lent skills had been reclaimed and offered the next stage of collection. Remembering the enormous unpaid interest, Mars decided to seize additional power from his former companions. The system began calculating available skills and requested that he choose which ability to take next. Mars selected Elia's unique skill, and the system immediately began the seizure process. The stolen ability evolved into a greater form, granting knowledge far beyond ordinary magic. Accepting the result, Mars declared that borrowed power should always be returned to its owner. Ilia's debt reached its limit, causing all future gains to be automatically seized. Activating his new skill, Mars gained access to ancient magical knowledge and prepared to face Vritra. Mars combined several evolved skills, instantly learning a powerful spell without needing a chant. Trusting the synergy between his abilities, he prepared a coordinated attack against Vritra. The unleashed spell struck the dragon directly, tearing through its massive body. To his surprise, the destroyed flesh began regenerating and rejoining almost immediately. Recognizing the monster's frightening recovery, Mars examined the battlefield for another way to win. Mars confirmed Vritra remained alive, despite being frozen, proving its regeneration was beyond normal limits. Using enhanced range and spatial jump together, he prepared a solution on a much larger scale. His awareness expanded across the world, allowing him to choose a distant destination. Activating the skill, Mars opened countless portals and transferred the frozen dragon away. Vritra was sent high above the world, leaving the dungeon empty while its rebirth remained centuries away. After Vitra's removal, the dungeon began collapsing, proving the boss had been defeated and the trap disabled. While the poisoned adventurers remained helpless, Mars considered rescuing them before the collapse finished. Just as he prepared to leave, he sensed another presence hidden within the ruins. Searching the area, he discovered a large crystal containing Vritra's egg. Realizing the dragon could return, Mars considered destroying the egg before it had a chance to hatch. Rather than destroy the egg, Mars decided to raise it, hoping another Vritra could prevent future disaster. The response surprised him, and for once he received support instead of criticism for his choice. With the egg secured, Mars activated spatial jump and escaped before the collapsing dungeon consumed everything. Emerging beneath the open sky, he became the first member of the party to leave the dungeon. Afterward, he quietly enjoyed a warm meal and a rare moment of peace. Carrying Vitra's egg, Mards left the dungeon behind and began planning his next steps. After receiving his rewards and leaving the guild, he enjoyed a rare sense of freedom while staying in contact with Yue. With his future no longer tied to the past, a new idea gradually formed in his mind. Rather than acting on impulse, he carefully considered the consequences of that decision. Wanting to repay Yue's constant support, Mards sincerely wished to grant her a body of her own. Reflecting on Yue's support, Mards wished for a future where he could meet her face to face. Rather than abandoning the idea, he began searching for a method to give her a physical form. A realization from the protected area revealed that a prepared consciousness could inhabit a created body. With that possibility in mind, Mards decided to use his second claim to pursue the plan. Activating Skill Lender once more, he began the foreclosure process needed to make it happen. Mards seized Tina's skill, causing it to evolve into a far more powerful blessing. Using the upgraded ability, he began creating a body capable of housing Yue's consciousness. The process advanced smoothly as every function needed for life and movement synchronized successfully. Gradually, a physical form took shape while Yue's consciousness was transferred into reality. At last, Yue appeared before him in her own body, bringing his long-held promise to completion. Seeing Yue awaken in her new body, Mards was relieved that the transfer had succeeded. As she adjusted to reality, Yue began thinking about how their relationship should change. After some consideration, she chose a title that reflected her trust and respect for him. A practical problem soon appeared when Yue realized she had no clothing at all. Mards explained the skill's limits, understanding that creating a body was possible, but creating clothes was not. Mards lent Yue his spare clothes and guided her through simple human customs while she adjusted to her new life. Yue happily followed him and accepted his decisions. Together they planned to raise Vritra far from civilization, avoiding unnecessary attention and danger. During their journey, Mards reviewed the powerful skills he had gained, and the enemies he still needed to surpass. With Yue beside him, he renewed his determination to reclaim everything that had been taken from him. A tavern. One of the former party members boasted about defeating the frozen snake boss and celebrated the dungeon victory. Meanwhile, others questioned the missing boss material and blamed Mards for ruining their success. As rumors spread, several members doubted that Mards possessed enough strength to defeat multiple elite opponents. Some tried to explain his abilities through borrowed skills, but uncertainty remained, despite the debate. Nobody could understand how much Mards had truly grown since leaving the party. A tense argument continued inside the tavern as one party member mocked the others. Meanwhile, another member pointed out that Mards had vanished days earlier, leaving many questions unanswered. Suspicion grew when details about the dungeon capture failed to match the official story, causing some to doubt the reported events. Frustration soon erupted, turning the discussion into a loud dispute. Despite the conflict, no one could reach a clear conclusion about Mards' actions or whereabouts. During a meal, Elia was asked to contribute something useful, prompting her to seriously consider an important realization. She revealed a discovery about a simple food combination that impressed her more than expected. Rather than discussing strategy, Elia enthusiastically praised the meal, leaving the others disappointed by her answer. Attention then shifted to her reputation as a famous genius, creating a sharp contrast with her current behavior. Watching her continue eating happily, the group began questioning whether that brilliant image still matched reality. While traveling, Mards explained how Duke Abik rebuilt a war-torn region and focused on stability instead of political conflict. As they continued down the road, Yue gradually adapted to walking and listened to his explanations. Their discussion shifted to trade routes, taxes, and the importance of maintaining safe roads between towns. Mards described how settlements generated revenue and supported military and economic activities. Soon they arrived near Kinu, a small town built under Abik's policies, leaving Yue impressed by its development. Mards and Yue discovered a field filled with monster corpses left behind after a large battle. Examining the scene, they identified numerous dangerous creatures and realized the scale of the conflict that had occurred overnight. Rather than using teleportation, Mards chose to continue on foot so Yue could gain more experience with the world. As they traveled, he wondered whether Yue's appearance attracted unusual attention from monsters. Soon, Mards suspected that the unique mana surrounding their abilities was drawing hostile creatures toward them. Mards explained a new defensive idea that would automatically protect their camp from monster attacks during the night. After passing more monster remains, both agreed the situation was unusual and decided to reach town quickly. Soon, they arrived at Kinui, a settlement built along the main road connecting nearby regions. As they walked, Mars introduced the purpose of in-towns, entering the streets. Yue noticed the town's atmosphere felt newer and more organized than the places they had visited before. After shopping in town, Mars introduced Yue to a baked sweet and continued carrying their supplies through the busy streets. Nearby, a young girl struggled under a heavy workload while being forced to carry large bags without rest. Something unusual caught Mars's attention when he noticed animal-like ears and a tail among the crowd. Looking closer, he realized the exhausted girl was a werewolf. A traveler learned that werewolves once lived in the nearby forest before war forced them from their homeland. The old tales described a proud race, blessed with strength, sharp claws, and tireless bodies. Yet the werewolf girl before him struggled under a heavy load, far different from those legends. Rather than living freely, she spent her days doing hard labor under strict supervision. After completing her quota, she reached the dining hall, where disrespect and hardship still followed her. At lunch, the werewolf girl received a tray thrown at her along with a meager meal. The tray held only diluted soup and a piece of dirty, soaked bread, while others enjoyed proper food. She was given far less. The traveler noticed the unfair treatment immediately. His companion recognized his concern and encouraged him to act instead of ignoring the situation. After making his decision, he chose to remain in the town longer, preparing to help the mistreated girl. The traveler approached the workplace and asked to meet the person in charge. Meanwhile, the werewolf girl quietly ate her small meal alone while the workers ignored her. Soon, the traveler met her and learned she earned only 3,000 yen after carrying countless wheat bags. The towering pile of sacks revealed how much labor she performed each day. Despite all that effort, most of her pay was deducted for food, leaving her with almost nothing. The werewolf girl questioned the traveler's intentions, watching him carefully, despite her exhaustion. As he observed her more closely, he realized she was not a child but a young werewolf boy. Even after enduring hardship, the boy still carried the pride and determination spoken of in old legends. Impressed, the traveler changed his plans and offered him a proposal instead of simple charity. Promising far greater earnings, he asked the young werewolf to listen and consider working with him. The traveler learned that the young werewolf possessed a leg-strengthening skill, but its short duration made it seem useless. Instead of dismissing it, he proposed a way to extend the skill and complete the wheat work much faster. Using simple calculations, he showed how finishing sooner would keep the earnings the same, while reducing expenses. The werewolf quickly understood the numbers, proving he was far more capable than others assumed. Seeing mutual benefit in the offer, he carefully considered the traveler's proposal. The young werewolf accepted the proposal, but demanded that any reward depend entirely on the results. After agreeing to the terms, the traveler carefully explained the skill contract and its conditions. Once the deal was settled, he prepared to activate his unique ability. The skill lending process began, linking the traveler to the werewolf's leg, strengthening power. As the transfer progressed, magical guidance appeared, helping him complete the complicated procedure. During the skill transfer, the traveler introduced himself and finally learned that the young werewolf's name was Shizuku. With their identities exchanged, trust slowly began to form between them. The loan process completed successfully, granting Shizuku a skill that could extend the duration of his ability. As proof of good faith, the traveler also gave him a sweet snack. Delighted by the unexpected gift, Shizuku quickly finished it before returning to work. Even while running back, he refused special treatment, determined to preserve his pride. Mars reflected on Shizuku's pride, realizing she would never accept help given out of pity alone. Thanks to the borrowed skill, Shizuku completed the demanding work far sooner than expected and collected her wages. Pleased with the result, she thanked Mars. In return, he urged her to find better work while the skill remained active. Believing she could now support herself, Mars handed over the promised payment and wished her success. Shizuku started to leave, drawing Mars's attention as he watched her walk away. The next day, while preparing to leave town, Mars suddenly spotted Shizuku hiding nearby and behaving suspiciously. Approaching carefully, he discovered her desperately eating discarded scraps from the ground. At a tavern, a frustrated adventurer worried about losing the reward tied to a failed mission. Soon after, news arrived that Mars had survived, while the dungeon had somehow been cleared despite the confusion. The adventurer rushed to inform his companions, who were gathered together and discussing strange changes affecting their group. Hearing the report, he grew irritated and questioned why the guild had summoned them. A formal notice revealed an upcoming inspection. The party leader feared their rise would stall as powerful groups began watching them closely. Soon, the members focused on gaining prestige through the upcoming inspection. Ambition grew as they imagined earning influence, recognition, and noble connections. After learning about the local lord, they agreed to impress him with their strongest abilities. Although one member sensed something was wrong, the rest remained confident in their plan. While celebrating their success, the party mocked Mars and remained unaware of the consequences of losing his support. Elsewhere, Mars reflected on how his former companion still failed to understand the value of his abilities. Suddenly, Shizuku rushed toward him in alarm after discovering something suspicious in her food. Examining the strange root, Mars recognized it as a plant sometimes used during emergencies despite its risks. Shizuku then revealed its hidden poison, explaining that excessive consumption could cause severe and lasting injury. Mars realized Shizuku had been forced to prepare poisonous roots because she lacked food and even access to clean water. The discovery troubled him further, since she had received wages only a day earlier, yet still could not afford bread. Suspecting foul play, Mars sent Yue to find Shizuku while he investigated her employer. The employer casually claimed he had paid her 600 yen. Hearing that answer, Mars exposed the lie and realized Shizuku had been cheated from the beginning. The employer defended his actions, claiming deductions and damaged goods justified paying Shizuku only a fraction of her earnings. Mars quickly realized the food costs were fabricated, and that most of her wages had been taken unfairly. As the truth emerged, he explained that Shizuku's desperate hunger came from being repeatedly deprived of her rightful pay. Even after hearing the facts, the employer refused to increase her compensation. His contempt for werewolves exposed the real reason behind the exploitation. Confronted with the employer's attitude, Mars finally understood the mindset behind such cruelty. Reflecting on his own betrayal, he realized his former companions had viewed him through a similarly selfish perspective. Although he accepted being removed from the party, their attempt to kill him remained impossible to justify. The more he thought about it, the more senseless their actions appeared. At last, Mars recognized how greed and pride could make people abandon reason, morality, and basic decency. As Mars reflected further, he compared the employer's cruelty with the betrayal he had suffered from his former party. Unlike ordinary criminals, those people acted against their own interests while harming someone who supported them. The employer proudly justified exploiting others, believing such behavior was simply a practical way to live. Mars listened carefully and gained a clearer understanding of that mindset. With the lesson finished, he calmly demanded compensation for having provided the employer with that insight. Mars requested the employer's hand and calmly prepared to collect the payment he was owed. Without warning, a spatial skill activated and severed the employer's hand in an instant. Coins scattered across the room as the employer stared in shock at the sudden loss. Overwhelmed by pain, he screamed while desperately clutching the bleeding wound. Moments later, panic replaced arrogance as the employer collapsed, unable to comprehend what had happened. Ignoring the employer's screams, Mars gathered the scattered coins and compared them to the amount stolen from Shizuku. Holding the money before him, Mars coldly pointed out the irony. Standing over the trembling offender, Mars watched as the man suffered the misery he had caused. Faced with desperate questions, he exposed how Shizuku endured poisonous roots after becoming a victim herself. Since remorse never reached predators like him, the punishment arrived through direct experience. Meanwhile, memories of Shizuku surfaced, reminding Mars that she fought on despite rejecting easier paths. In the end, her actions honored that borrowed strength, earning Mars's respect for the werewolf girl's character, having abandoned pride and honor long ago. Mars accepted the burden of delivering justice himself. While the merchant demanded authority, Mars reminded him that exploiting Shizuku carried a price he owed. Stepping closer, he revealed that Shizuku's struggle mattered because part of his strength supported her. Rather than seeking revenge alone, Mars arrived to reclaim every benefit the merchant gained unfairly. Coins scattered across the floor as the merchant protested. Unaware Mars had already calculated everything. Without raising his voice, Mars declared that the remaining debt matched the merchant's left hand and feet. Clutching his coins, the merchant boasted about healing himself, yet Mars proposed equal repayment. Outside, startled villagers gathered around the ruined building, while the wounded merchant struggled to move. Amid shattered walls and scattered debris, Mars approached again, determined to finish collecting what remained. Rather than relying on threats, he urged the merchant to reflect, though genuine remorse seemed unlikely. A voice interrupted the tense scene, informing Mars that Shizuku had arrived at the building. Before continuing, Mars restored the merchant's injury, then welcomed Shizuku and another companion inside. As curious townspeople watched from outside, Shizuku appeared unharmed and questioned the chaos surrounding them. Hearing she remained healthy, Mars felt relieved, knowing the borrowed angelic power had protected her. With witnesses now present, he resumed the interrogation, determined to uncover what the merchant concealed. Under Mars's questioning, the merchant finally admitted reducing Shizuku's wages and exploiting her unfairly. After calculating every loss, Mars demanded compensation covering withheld wages, medicine expenses, and overdue payments. To Shizuku's surprise, he handed over a generous reward that far exceeded her expectations. Rather than keeping the fortune, the honest werewolf girl immediately tried returning it without hesitation. Seeing her reaction, Mars explained that taking more than deserved would make him no different. After a brief pause, Mars remembered the destruction around them and demanded payment for repairing the office. Activating another borrowed skill, he offered the coin, leaving the merchant confused by his actions. Moments later, the enchanted coin struck with tremendous force, launching the merchant across the room, amid flying debris and scattered money. The merchant collapsed as Mars settled the final balance, turning away from the battered man. Mars declared their accounts closed and ended the dispute. Watching Mars depart with Shizuku, the merchant realized he had lost any claim for retaliation. Pain and humiliation overwhelmed him, as worried workers rushed over to inspect the destruction. Consumed by anger, despite his defeat, the merchant immediately demanded that Foreman Eldro be summoned. Leaving the dispute behind, Mars collected Shizuku's unpaid wages and suggested buying proper clothes. At an inn, Yue prepared to clean everyone up, insisting their worn and dirty outfits needed replacing. Later, Mars paid for baths and clothing, while Shizuku enjoyed the unfamiliar treatment with excitement. Freshly dressed, both girls looked different, surprising Mars and revealing sides he had never seen. Noticing his reaction, Shizuku asked whether the outfit seemed strange, unaware she looked much happier. Examining the new outfits, Mars teased the girls before admitting the design suited them well. When he offered sincere praise, Shizuku brightened while Yue looked surprised by the compliment. Embarrassment soon replaced her excitement, yet Shizuku confessed she liked her new clothes. After the mood settled, Mars raised a question about why Shizuku endured that merchant's treatment. Recalling the poisonous roots she survived, Mars believed the determined werewolf could have fought back. Looking down at her hands, Shizuku explained that werewolves existed to use their strength for others. Mars listened. She admitted that belief remained unchanged regardless of hardship or unfair treatment. With newfound determination, Shizuku declared she would unleash her power only for someone truly worthy. Remembering the legends of her people, Mars admired the pride and conviction she never abandoned. After hearing her answer, he asked whether Shizuku could use that power for him instead. Before Shizuku could answer, Mars sensed several armed men approaching the inn and warned everyone. Outside, a mercenary group advanced through the town, led by figures Mars immediately recognized. After observing them closely, he concluded the merchant had hired mercenaries to seek revenge. The sight of their leader enraged Shizuku, who instantly recognized the man approaching them. When Mars asked for her strength, Shizuku accepted without hesitation and prepared to fight beside him. Before confronting the mercenaries, Mars confirmed whether the enhancement skill he lent Shizuku remained active. Yue worried that relying only on a simple enhancement ability seemed dangerous against armed opponents. Instead of agreeing, Mars revealed that Shizuku possessed a different skill than expected. Caught off guard by his insight, Shizuku wondered how Mars had uncovered her secret. Drawing from several clues, he explained that her ability lasted only briefly and differed from common skills. Although reluctant to reveal it, Shizuku agreed to demonstrate the true ability she had hidden. Calling upon her ancestors' blessing, she gathered immense power while Mars watched the transformation unfold. Wrapped in divine energy, Shizuku unveiled the legendary werewolf skill that protected both body and spirit. The next moment, she burst from the inn and crashed into the approaching mercenaries. Standing before the mercenaries, Shizuku demanded their intentions while refusing to let them reach Mars. The group's leader mocked her warning and declared that everything connected to Mars belonged to them. Unimpressed by his threats, Shizuku challenged him directly and invited him to prove his strength. Before the mercenary could react properly, she closed the distance and struck with overwhelming speed. Her first attack landed cleanly, sending the arrogant fighter reeling as the battle finally began. Empowered by her transformation, Shizuku overwhelmed the mercenary leader, striking repeatedly before he could recover. Staring at her rising mana, the battered man questioned how someone he dismissed had become stronger. Watching from the inn, Mars explained that the mercenary could not understand Shizuku's true character. Even after suffering abuse and humiliation, Shizuku never chose violence to satisfy resentment. Because he valued strength alone, the mercenary failed to grasp honor, kindness, and genuine resolve. While dismantling the mercenaries, Shizuku declared that anyone threatening Mars and his companions had erred. Observing her overwhelming strength, Mars admitted this legendary werewolf skill exceeded every expectation he held. From the window, he noted that ordinary eyes could never follow Shizuku's extraordinary speed in battle. Curious about the ability, Yue wondered whether the werewolf technique differed from ordinary unique skills. nodding. Marz explained that the rare skill belonged to a special category known only through records. Marz explained that ordinary skills came from training, while unique skills reflected an individual's special qualities. Beyond those abilities, he described rare powers born from the land's mana and natural environment. Occasionally, a compatible being inherited that local mana and awakened an extraordinary regional skill. Unlike common abilities, these land-based powers drew strength directly from the place of origin. According to ancient legends, werewolves wielded such power, growing stronger and fiercer throughout prolonged battles. As Shizuku's power surged dramatically, Marz declared that no opponent could defeat her on this land. Suddenly, a desperate voice echoed repeatedly through the battlefield, demanding that something be returned immediately. Listening carefully, Marz realized Shizuku was unconsciously projecting her thoughts far beyond normal speech. Unable to understand her feelings completely, he admitted that Shizuku's motives still amazed him. The mysterious cry intensified without warning, causing both Marz and Yue to react with surprise. Across the city, a furious beastwoman charged through collapsing streets, demanding everything stolen from her be returned. Frustrated, she cried out for her money, time, dignity, and strength taken away before. Sensing the culprit had already fled, Marz activated spatial jump and began tracking traces with Ye. Inside, a damaged building, their search ended when a nervous man appeared and tried concealing himself. Marz exposed the buried severed arm, forcing the culprit's crimes into the open. After discovering a strange underground space, Marz used spatial jump and predicted where the culprit planned hiding. Terrified by the beastwoman's pursuit, the culprit accused Marz of cruelty while begging for escape. Marz warned that hiding underground would change nothing and only hasten defeat. Sweat covered the culprit's face, as he realized Marz differed from ordinary mercenaries. Instead of seeking revenge, Marz chose protection, refusing to let Shizuku commit an irreversible crime. Seeing the culprit panic, Marz ordered him to stay still because the enraged beastwoman was approaching. Despite threatening words, Marz promised to heal the culprit, showing concern even for an enemy. Later, the beastwoman arrived and cornered her target, while Marz prepared to prevent bloodshed. Fear overwhelmed the culprit as a terrifying scream echoed across the city beneath the moonlit sky. 3 days later, peace returned, and Marz traveled through town alongside Shizuku, Yue, and companions. While walking through town, Marz grew exhausted as more residents approached, eager to speak with him. Across Kainu, dozens of defeated mercenaries were discovered on the streets, causing widespread rumors and concern. To ease public anxiety, stories spread claiming a famous traveler defeated Jiren instead of Shizuku. Soon afterward, townspeople surrounded Marz's group, asking questions and praising their recent accomplishments. Throughout the day, even more residents greeted them, while favorable rumors continued spreading everywhere. As they left town, Marz wondered why people hated Jiren. So while discussing Shizuku's actions, feeling embarrassed under everyone's attention, Shizuku carried bags filled with gold confiscated from Jiren. After reviewing Jiren's assets, Marz decided to sell valuable property and return the stolen wealth. The enormous amount shocked everyone, far exceeding ordinary wages and even surpassing many adventurers' earnings. Unable to imagine spending such riches, Shizuku collapsed from disbelief, while Yue questioned the staggering total, noticing Marz planned to leave soon. Yue asked how long their group intended to remain in Kainu. To everyone's surprise, Shizuku suggested spending the recovered fortune within the town before departing. Because Kainu was a small settlement, taking such wealth away could damage the local economy. Rather than treating money as a burden, Marz explained its value during emergencies, business, and trade. Although Kainu held painful memories for Shizuku, Marz believed its innocent residents deserved support and recovery. Shizuku thanked Marz for his kindness, while Ye watched as the conversation took an unexpected turn. Rather than focusing on Jiren alone, Marz worried about innocent residents who suffered from the turmoil. Hearing his reasoning, Yue encouraged Marz to consider his own happiness instead of others. First, Yue declared she would find ways to make Marz happy, leaving him confused. Using spatial jump, the group arrived before Rinano's jewelry store and prepared to enter. Excitement filled Shizuku's face when Marz explained that valuable jewelry offered better opportunities than gold. Since spending their fortune elsewhere proved difficult, Marz chose a place capable of handling massive purchases. Although curious about the luxurious store, Shizuku admitted she always felt out of place there. Stepping inside together, the group met the shop owner who greeted them from behind. After presenting the recovered fortune, Marz asked the shop owner to prepare matching jewelry for everyone. Stunned by the enormous sum, the owner realized she possessed something suitable for them. From a special collection, she revealed ancient pendants once worn by a respected werewolf queen. While examining the jewelry, the owner explained that mana influenced each gem's appearance and qualities. Using endemic skill, Mards noticed subtle differences within the pendants, suggesting unusual magical properties. Impressed by their actions against Jaren, the shop owner offered 3 special pendants as a gift. Although reluctant to accept something expensive, Shizuku received the pendant after Mards encouraged her gently. Clutching the gift, Shizuku asked Mards for a private conversation outside the store. After leading him into a quiet alley, she revealed that she wanted to reward Mards. Embarrassed, yet determined, Shizuku invited Mards to visit her werewolf homeland and hidden village someday. While discussing her homeland, Shizuku revealed a hidden dungeon called Faraway Azure beneath the werewolf den. Lowering her head, Shizuku admitted the dungeon's secret was the only reward she could offer. Grabbing Mards' hands, she begged him to save her hometown from an ongoing crisis. Elsewhere, Ultra and the others relaxed inside a carriage, enjoying treatment usually reserved for nobles. As the comfortable journey continued, Ultra reflected on her past behavior and regretted doubting Mards. During the carriage ride, Ultra joked about Mards while wondering where he would sit among them. Meanwhile, discussions spread about dangerous dungeon stampedes, which occurred when powerful bosses remained undefeated. For many adventurers, defeating such threats offered a chance to earn recognition from influential nobles. Among those pursuing greater status, Ultra and her companions aimed to obtain an honored court rank. As their destination drew closer, Ultra suspected Duke Abek's generosity concealed intentions beyond simple hospitality. Inside the carriage, Tina appeared uneasy as the former Sword of Divine Silver members relaxed together. Soon, the carriage departed the city gates and continued toward the debut show's location. Despite promises of a smooth trip, unexpected trouble emerged when something suddenly attacked the moving carriage. The sudden disturbance ruined the peaceful ride, forcing Ultra to apologize after spilling wine. Looking outside, the group discovered several poison boars blocking the road and threatening their journey. Rather than retreating, Gordon volunteered to handle the monsters, while Elia continued sleeping. Although dangerous for ordinary adventurers, the poison boars posed little challenge to experienced S-rank fighters. Activating Sword Saint, Gordon charged forward and instantly cut through the attacking beasts with overwhelming power. Confident in his abilities, Gordon expected Sword Saint and Hawk's Eye to handle the remaining monsters. Without warning, his vision suddenly vanished, leaving him unable to see anything during combat. Mistaking the problem for drunkenness, Gordon steadied himself and prepared to strike another charging boar. Even after activating Sword Saint again, confusion spread, as his attacks produced unexpected results. Far away, Mars activated Return Everything, causing Gordon to realize his borrowed skills had disappeared. One day before the debut show, leaving Ultra little time to recover his lost power. Before a packed audience, Sword of Divine Silver entered the arena to begin their performance. As the host introduced, Ultra resolved to display the abilities that built his reputation watching from above. Duke Abek became Ultra's target as he dreamed of earning noble status. Later, the organizers revealed an A-rank opponent, forcing Sword of Divine Silver into battle. To ensure everyone's safety, additional adventurers remained while the prepared A-rank party stood ready. Ultra struggled with missing skills, realizing he could no longer handle the challenge normally. When the gate opened, countless armored army ants emerged, revealing the true scale of the threat. Despite seeing nearly 50 monsters, Ultra boasted that his sword would crush them all. After giving orders to his teammates, Ultra prepared to confront the monsters despite his uncertainty. Moments later, the debut show began as the army ants surged forward from their cage. As the army ants advanced, Ultra ordered his teammates forward and activated Obsidian to block them. Attempting to recover control, Ultra activated Sword Saint, but another attack sent him crashing backward. Confusion spread among his companions as they watched Ultra struggle against enemies he once defeated easily. Embarrassed before the audience, Ultra laughed and blamed his poor performance on nervousness. Desperate to maintain appearances, Ultra repeatedly activated Sword Saint while avoiding the swarming ants. Watching Ultra stumble, his teammates realized something was wrong and questioned his missing perception. As suspicions grew, they remembered Mars's borrowed skills and wondered whether those abilities had vanished. Meanwhile, Ultra struggled alone, shocked by the possibility that countless borrowed powers were disappearing. After connecting the clues, Gordon concluded Ultra lost Hawk's Eye, leaving Sword Saint impossible to control. At that moment, everyone understood Sword of Divine Silver's strength depended heavily on Mars. Seeing Ultra overwhelmed, Gordon urgently ordered Tina to heal him before the situation worsened. Further, Tina activated Angel's white wings, but nothing happened, leaving her completely stunned before everyone. Realization struck as Tina discovered her healing power had vanished without any warning. While Tina panicked over the loss, another attack knocked Ultra down and deepened the chaos. Desperate for help, Tina turned toward Elia, only to learn ancient magic was unavailable too. Since ancient magic failed, Elia offered the only support available and tried helping Ultra recover. Using an unusual method, Elia reminded Ultra that werewolves healed wounds faster with saliva. Suddenly, Tina noticed Duke Abeek's reaction and realized the disastrous situation was becoming public. Across the battlefield, Sword of Divine Silver lost control as panic spread among every member. In the end, Duke Abeek's guards and an A-rank party intervened, ending the humiliating debut show. A full week passed after Chaotic's disastrous debut, and Gordon watched their standing crumble among nobles. Remembering his unanswered request, Gordon placed his hopes on the Duke, while Tina avoided everyone. Near the appointed hour, Gordon turned toward Elia and asked whether the expected response approached. After studying the moon above the estate, Elia offered a guess, though doubt remained. Without warning, the Duke's butler arrived and returned Gordon's letter, rejecting the requested audience. Upon receiving the returned letter, Ultra froze in disbelief, while Elia quietly watched the sudden reaction. Desperation overtook Ultra, causing him to stop the butler and plead for another opportunity. Instead of arguing further, the butler presented an official refusal notice, leaving Ultra visibly shaken. Raising 3 fingers, the butler explained that Ultra misunderstood several matters surrounding the failed request. As the explanation continued, Elia learned the Duke avoided disputes and preferred resolving problems. Hearing the butler's reasoning, Ultra denied the accusation and insisted he would never respond that way. Maintaining his composure, the butler explained that mistakes happened often, yet abandoning responsibility remained unacceptable. To support his argument, the butler recalled an earlier failure where his master chose perseverance. The discussion shifted sharply when the butler revealed that Ultra had repeated the same mistake. Confusion replaced Ultra's anger as the butler pointed out his reckless reliance on Sword Saint. The butler warned that abusing Sword Saint again could endanger both the Duke and his wife. Dark possibilities followed that warning, as reckless use of the skill invited consequences no ruler accepted. Images of execution, torture, and imprisonment flooded Ultra's mind, causing him to collapse in panic. Seeing his reaction, the butler explained that the Duke forgave the incident and avoided punishment. Before departing, the butler advised Ultra to value his future and broaden his perspective. Before leaving, the butler advised Ultra to report natural disasters or rebellions threatening the Duke's territory. One final suggestion followed, as the butler mentioned such information could earn Ultra an audience. After the butler departed, Elia concluded the Duke's rejection was absolute and impossible to reverse. Frustration consumed Ultra, prompting him to blame Mars for destroying every remaining opportunity. Meanwhile, their group continued falling apart, with Tina missing, Gordon traumatized, and Elia abandoning magic. Crushed by failure, Ultra mourned the collapse of his ambitions and believed everything he built had vanished. Refusing despair, he remembered Angelina, the talented alchemist meant to replace Mars within their ranks. While Elia reported Angelina's arrival, Ultra abandoned nobility and set his sights on scholarship. Confidence returned as Ultra convinced himself the Sword of Divine Silver could still recover. Elsewhere, Angelina settled into her room and prepared for tomorrow's long-awaited guild visit. Holding her golem companion with delight, Angelina eagerly anticipated meeting the person she admired most. Mars began the repayment process, retrieving duration enhancement from Shizuku and triggering an unexpected reaction. As the lending period expired, Shizuku realized the borrowed power of Fang Wolf had vanished. Rather than losing everything, Mars explained that he could lend duration enhancement again whenever needed. Before Shizuku could respond, Omu checked her status and discovered the skill remained usable. Surprised by the result, Shizuku learned that duration enhancement had transformed into her own skill. As they prepared for another assignment, Mars promised to explain how Shizuku obtained duration enhancement. Before the discussion continued, Kinui's mayor arrived unexpectedly and requested assistance from Mars's group. After hearing the request, Mars listened carefully, while the mayor explained a dangerous monster problem. According to the mayor, monster activity around Kinui had increased steadily during recent months. To Mars's surprise, the mayor revealed that Shizuku had already defeated the mercenaries involved. While discussing the attack, Mars clarified that Jaren and his mercenaries were responsible for the incident. Despite that explanation, Kinui's mayor insisted the monster threat remained unresolved and required immediate action. Hearing the request, Mars considered the situation carefully while discussing the matter with Omu. After connecting several clues, Mars suspected the growing monster population was linked to faraway Azure. His conclusion carried urgency, as a massive monster stampede could erupt within 6 months. Without wasting time, Mards decided to head for faraway Azure and handle the growing threat. After arriving nearby, Mars activated his scouting skill and discovered more than 100 monsters. Facing the horde alone, he unleashed Spatial Rupture and eliminated every monster in moments. Once the battle ended, Mards resumed his explanation while leading Shizuku and Omu forward, using skill point examples. He revealed that Shizuku learned duration enhancement because she met the requirements. While traveling, Mards explained that skills required training, but his ability bypassed that process. Continuing his explanation, he revealed that skills grew stronger through accumulated skill points and usage. Unlike ordinary abilities, Skill Lender allowed Mards to transfer skill points and grant skills temporarily. However, strict limitations existed, since each skill could only be lent to a single person. Using enhanced support skills, Mards could strengthen entire groups while retaining most skill points. While eliminating monsters, Mards listened as Shizuku imagined creating a powerful army through Skill Lender. In response, Mards explained that every borrowed skill accumulated interest, increasing the repayment burden over time. Curious about the drawback, Shizuku asked what happened whenever a borrower failed to use skills. Using Ilya as an example, Mards showed how enormous skill point debts became impossible to repay. Once the debt exceeded its limits, repayment consumed other skills instead, leaving borrowers trapped. While answering questions, Mards admitted that several aspects of Skill Lender remained unexplored and uncertain. Turning back to Shizuku's case, he explained why duration enhancement stayed after the repayment ended. After hearing that explanation, Shizuku realized constant usage had steadily increased the skill's points. Calculating the remaining amount, she concluded that excess skill points remained even after repayment. Delighted by the discovery, Shizuku immediately asked Mards whether he could lend additional abilities next. Omu dismissed that idea at once, comparing Shizuku's reasoning to someone trapped by debt. As they continued traveling, Shizuku watched Mards closely while he stored monster materials for later. Curiosity soon overcame her, prompting Shizuku to ask whether another useful skill was involved. Rather than naming a skill, Mards explained that several abilities worked together to create the effect. Hearing that answer, Omu noted such an ability would revolutionize countless fields if possible. Mards then pointed toward the enormous pile of materials, showing why carrying everything remained troublesome. After helping Yue with a small favor, Shizuku listened attentively as Mards prepared another explanation. Rather than revealing a single skill, Mards described several abilities working together to create storage. The complicated explanation quickly overwhelmed Shizuku, leaving her unable to follow most of it. To simplify matters, Mards demonstrated Cositis and created a special frozen container before them. Examining the icy structure closely, Shizuku learned that materials could be stored within its interior. To demonstrate the process, Mards launched the frozen container high above the world, using spatial leap. When Shizuku mentioned the sky, Mards clarified that the destination was far beyond ordinary skies. Drawing from ancient records, he explained that objects reaching the sea of stars rarely returned. After hearing the explanation, Shizuku realized the frozen container served as a long-term storage method. Mards then revealed that placing materials overhead made them easier to locate with scanning abilities. While discussing skill combinations, Mards recalled advice from someone who once taught him valuable lessons. Nearby, a broken weapon caught his attention, reminding him of Ultra's narrow way of thinking. Reflecting on the past, Mards noted that Ultra lost crucial support skills, yet retained Sword Saint. Even so, Mards believed Ultra had already realized how much power disappeared with those losses. Their conversation ended when Yue detected another swarm of monsters approaching and alerted Mards without hesitation. Mards deployed Shizuku against the threat, and Kanui's surrounding monsters soon disappeared. Upon reaching the mayor's residence, Mards accompanied Yue and their companions inside, after receiving a request concerning valuable subjugation materials. Inside the reception room, the gathered party met the mayor's secretary, who welcomed them and inquired about their visit. Without wasting time, Mards placed several collected materials forward and requested that they be delivered to the mayor. Taking over the explanation, Yue revealed that those materials had been recovered from monsters defeated during their recent operation. To clarify the situation further, Yue explained that the mayor planned to purchase them separately from the mission reward. Outside the building, Yue revealed that many similar containers remained in the garden and requested that all of them be purchased. After hearing the explanation, the secretary realized the materials contained tremendous value, leaving her overwhelmed by the situation. Faced with such an enormous transaction, the secretary hesitated and worried that accepting everything might violate previous commitments. Looking across the garden, she calculated the costs and feared the town's treasury could not support such spending. Seeing her concern, Yue proposed lending the necessary funds, offering a solution that would ease the secretary's burden. After noticing the secretary's worries, Yue offered to lend the necessary funds, presenting an alternative that resolved the payment issue. Rather than demanding immediate repayment, Yue explained that compensation could come later through money or future cooperation. Convinced by the proposal, the secretary hurried away to obtain the mayor's approval while the group waited patiently. Sometime later, Mars received an official certificate confirming the agreement, including repayment terms extending over 10 years. Examining the document, Mars expressed his gratitude toward Yue, whose assistance secured favorable conditions for their arrangement. While reviewing the completed agreement, Mars reflected that the process had been complicated, yet it successfully secured cooperation from Kinui Town. His thoughts shifted toward rebuilding Hidden Wolf Village, knowing that essential supplies from Kinui Town would soon arrive. Meanwhile, Mars considered the risks of acting too openly, deciding that certain arrangements should remain concealed for now. Explaining his plan to Shizuku, he revealed that the mayor would serve as a cover while information stayed protected. Seeking her honest opinion, Mars asked whether she objected to the arrangement, but Shizuku showed no sign of concern. Shizuku believed Mars had chosen the best solution, ensuring nobody suffered losses while supporting those affected by war. Encouraged by their agreement, Mars declared their next objective, and led the group toward conquering the deepest azure. As the group advanced deeper into the forest, memories surfaced about Shizuku's parents and the danger controlling deepest azure. Those lingering memories revealed a desperate warning, describing a mysterious being called the Devourer and an approaching threat. Continuing their journey, Mars asked about werewolf history, prompting Shizuku to recall lessons taught by her parents. According to Shizuku, a devastating war forced the werewolves from their homeland, leaving mostly women and children behind. While explaining the past, Shizuku revealed that her father and the remaining survivors stayed because werewolves belonged there. Listening to Shizuku's explanation, Mars realized the werewolves treasured this land deeply because it was tied to their inherited power. As the forests gradually disappeared, the werewolves lost much of their strength and were forced to flee repeatedly. Eventually, the survivors settled within a hidden valley beyond human reach, preserving their community inside the remaining woodland. While following the path, Mars observed dry soil, brittle rocks, and severe temperature changes that shaped the region. Noticing Yue's condition during the journey, Mars checked on her, and she assured him that nothing was wrong. As they traveled onward, Shizuku explained that demi-humans had survived in secrecy there for 3 generations without discovery. While describing the region, she revealed that the dangerous S-rank dungeon provided food and materials, despite frequent casualties. Reaching a high vantage point, the group overlooked the hidden settlement, where residents endured harsh conditions to survive. Activating his divine eye, Mars noticed smoke rising near the village and immediately sensed that something was unusual. The sight shocked Shizuku because creating smoke was forbidden within the village, leading her to fear an emergency. Without hesitation, Mars grabbed his companions and activated Spatial Leap, rushing toward the village to investigate the disturbance. The moment they arrived, a horrifying scene unfolded below, revealing homes engulfed in flames throughout the settlement. Staring at the burning village in disbelief, the group struggled to understand the disaster that had struck the community. Following Shizuku's directions, Mars searched for her family home among the flames while preventing her from rushing ahead. Before they could reach the village center, countless monsters appeared nearby, forcing Mars to activate Asura's 6 arms. Surrounded from every direction, the group pushed forward together, as swarms of creatures attacked across the ruined settlement. Spotting a dangerous insect monster blocking their path, Mars charged forward and targeted its exposed body immediately. After cutting through the enemy, Mars checked Yue's condition while leading everyone closer to the burning village. Consumed by anger and worry, Shizuku charged toward her home, while hostile monsters continued swarming through the burning village. Activating Armored Fang Wolf, Shizuku smashed through several creatures, desperately clearing a path toward her family's house. Upon entering the ruined building, Shizuku discovered her parents lying motionless among the debris, covered with severe burns. As panic overwhelmed her, Mars remained calm, moved the victims outside, and prepared to perform emergency treatment. Recognizing the familiar healing skill once used on Jiran, Shizuku watched closely as hope returned to her. After completing the treatment, Mars confirmed that Shizuku's parents would recover soon, causing her overwhelming relief and gratitude. Despite that small success, the surrounding village remained consumed by flames, while injured survivors slowly emerged from hiding. Looking across the devastation, Mars reflected on how the weak often suffered beneath forces far beyond their control. As burning monsters drifted through the sky, He questioned why such tragedy continued, despite humanity's progress and civilization. Witnessing ruined homes and fallen villagers, Mars realized the survivors had already lost nearly everything before this disaster. Watching the destruction around him, Mars questioned why society existed at all when tragedies like this continued unchecked. Frustration filled his thoughts as he doubted the value of rulers, institutions, and education in protecting vulnerable people. Breaking the silence, Yue asked whether they should focus their efforts on rescuing the remaining village residents first. After assessing the situation, Mars concluded that defeating nearby monsters alone would not stop the continuous attacks. Recognizing the true source of the disaster, Mars asked Shizuku whether she could defend the village independently. After hearing Mars's question, Shizuku explained that her unique heritage granted an endemic skill unavailable to others. Using Skill Lender, Mars began transferring Scout's intuition to Shizuku, hoping to strengthen her chances of survival. When she questioned the choice, Mars explained that the skill could detect danger and provide advance warnings. Rather than preparing her for battle, Mars instructed Shizuku to escape immediately if overwhelming threats became unavoidable. Refusing to abandon her homeland, Shizuku declared that she would remain and fight, because nowhere else awaited her. In response, Mars revealed that he also refused a life spent merely surviving after losing everything important. Explaining his belief further, Mars argued that true living meant more than survival, unlike the instincts of wild beasts. After hearing his words, Shizuku finally understood his intentions and vowed that such a tragedy would never happen again. With the village still under attack, Mars divided their responsibilities, assigning Yue and Shizuku to protect the remaining residents. Before departing, Mars asked Shizuku to value her own life whenever possible, sealing that request with a promise. After accepting his decision, Shizuku directed Mars toward Deepest Azure and urged him to focus on defeating the boss. Carrying Yue on his back, Mars rushed forward while Shizuku separated from the group to defend the village. As monsters continued emerging across the settlement, Mars questioned Yue about the location of their spawning source. Following Yue's guidance, Mars headed toward the western mountainside, convinced that the entrance to Deepest Azure awaited ahead. As hostile creatures blocked their advance, Mars unleashed overwhelming force, scattering the monsters and clearing a route forward. During their rapid approach, Yue noticed a maintained pathway and identified it as the route villagers once used. At the end of that trail, the pair discovered Deepest Azure's entrance, where countless monsters continued pouring outward. Without slowing down, Mars entrusted Yue with the next task and rushed toward the dungeon while every minute mattered. As another enormous monster blocked the road ahead, Mars activated Adamantine Barrier and accepted the creature's direct assault. Thanks to the evolved skill's tremendous durability, every strike bounced away harmlessly, leaving Mars completely unaffected during combat. Recognizing the barrier's exceptional weight and resilience, Mars combined those traits with rushing force to create destruction. Channeling full power through Asura's 6 arms, he unleashed Great Ram and blasted apart countless monsters across the passage. The reinforced defense absorbed every impact without damage, proving that ordinary attacks could no longer threaten his advance. Combining overwhelming momentum with his strengthened abilities, Mars transformed his defense into a devastating offensive technique against enemies. Unleashing Great Ram through Asura's 6 arms, he smashed through the monster horde and cleared the entire passage. After breaking through the final blockade, Mars and Yue charged into Deepest Azure, determined to conquer the dungeon. Mars reflected on countless wars throughout history, understanding that victors always claimed land and resources while defeated nations lost everything. While exploring the Deepest Azure's first floor, Mars questioned why humanity established civilization when creatures already fought for survival. Crossing the second floor, Mars observed fallen monsters and concluded that humans stood apart because they created civilization and order. As insects swarmed across the third floor, Mars realized humanity endured because people united against danger instead of facing threats alone. After overcoming the attackers, Mars wondered whether countries and societies existed to protect people or preserve power for elites. Mars and Yue-san descended another staircase within the Deepest Azure, then paused briefly after sensing a strange change ahead. Reaching the 4th floor, Mars discovered a vast sea stretching beyond sight, revealing an unexpected landscape inside the dungeon. As waves rolled across the shoreline, Mars accepted that anything could exist within an S-rank dungeon's hidden depths. Yue-san examined the water and confirmed it matched fresh spring water, surprising Mars and easing concerns about danger. Before Yue-san could drink more, Mars stopped her, remaining cautious because the labyrinth's true nature remained unknown. As they followed the shoreline, Mars compared the enormous lake to a sea and recalled how dungeons often concealed unexpected dangers. Remembering reports from veteran adventurers, Mards suspected the deepest azure reflected an ocean, transforming imagination into reality within. Yue-san suggested crossing with spatial jump, but Mards refused after noticing endless waters below and large swarms above. Sea serpents suddenly emerged from the water, confirming Mards's concerns and revealing that crossing the vast lake would require time. After considering the obstacles ahead, Mards activated Cocytus and decided to create a ship for safer travel. Mards created an ice ship with Cocytus, helped Yue-san aboard, and prepared defensive barriers before beginning their voyage. While sailing across the vast lake, Mards searched for traces of ancient magic and accelerated the vessel with Aeolos. Sea serpents and giant insects pursued them from every direction, but Mards remained calm and continued strengthening his techniques. Using overlapping magic and Argo, Mards increased the ship's speed, hoping to reach the bottom floor without delay. Elsewhere in Hidden Wolf Village, a wolfkin man regained consciousness amid destruction and struggled to remember his actions. After surviving the attack, the wolfkin man learned his wife and daughter had been rescued. While their injuries healed, realizing they were sheltered inside another home, the wolfkin man suspected an unknown person had protected them from monsters. When Shizuku rushed forward, the wolfkin man finally recognized his daughter and felt relieved after seeing her awake. Shizuku revealed she could now use Armored Fangwolf in battle, explaining that someone had lent power to her. When Shizuku mentioned a person heading toward East Azure, her father sensed danger and became visibly concerned, determined to help. Her father declared he would enter the deepest azure, despite Shizuku insisting the enemy was dangerous. Shizuku revealed the culprit had released monsters across the region, leaving her father shocked by the scale of destruction. After hearing the culprit's identity, both father and daughter recognized Duke Abik as the enemy behind the disaster. Mars and Yue rushed through the hidden dungeon, estimating about 30 minutes remained before they could reach the bottom level. Approaching the general's chamber, Mars halted his advance when a strange presence entered his senses, prompting immediate caution and observation. Keeping their distance behind rocky cover, Mars and Yue spotted several hooded individuals traveling together through the restricted passage. The group carried equipment bearing the ducal Abik family crest, causing Mars to question their purpose inside the secret dungeon. Suspecting the intruders could interfere with his objective, Mars revealed his position and ordered the concealed figures to appear. After revealing himself, Mars stood beside Yue and confronted the hooded group, whose apparent leader demanded their names and affiliations. Mars identified himself as a former guild member, prompting the group to question why an unaffiliated adventurer had entered this place. When Mars revealed his connection to Divine Silver Sword, the group's leader showed surprise before responding with uncontrollable laughter. The surrounding members joined the ridicule, treating Mars's former association with Divine Silver Sword as an embarrassing joke. Their leader explained that Divine Silver Sword's reputation had declined since Mars left, yet Mars showed no concern whatsoever. The leader explained that his group discovered the dungeon while tracking a monster source and decided to conquer it independently. After hearing the explanation, Mars concluded the expedition was not operating under direct orders but through personal initiative. Mars connected several facts together and deduced that Duke Abek had lost confidence in the guild's capabilities recently. The leader mocked Mars's past circumstances, claiming even his former party had dismissed him before he became unaffiliated. Questioning their intentions further, Mars learned the group planned to report their conquest afterward and present the achievement. While hearing the group's intentions, Mars considered capturing every member afterward and sealing their memories to protect the hidden village. Yue presented a communication crystal and reminded Mars that Shizuku was still waiting, causing him to reconsider their priorities. Remembering the approaching danger and the dungeon boss ahead, Mars decided they could not waste precious time there. As Mars prepared to depart with Yue, the hostile leader rejected his warning and launched an unexpected attack instead. Mars responded at once, protecting Yue while deflecting the strike, sending the attacker's weapon spinning into the deep chasm. After losing the pendant during the clash, Yue became distressed while the hostile group mocked her situation and insulted Mars. The group continued ridiculing Mars and Yue, dismissing them as insignificant people while laughing at their unfortunate circumstances. Seeing Yue blame herself for the loss, Mars comforted her and insisted they would search for the pendant together. Mars explained that the jewel held great importance to the werewolves, making it impossible for him to ignore. Remembering their original mission, Yue agreed they should recover the pendant and continue advancing through the dungeon afterward. Watching the ducal Abek group approach the massive door, Mars concluded their confidence, suggested they possessed enough strength to defeat the boss. After considering the situation, Yue agreed that the group would likely overcome the general, allowing them time to recover the pendant. Mars decided they should search for the missing jewel immediately before it sank deeper into the dangerous underground waters. Meanwhile, the opposing group dismissed Mars as an insignificant former member and continued mocking the reputation surrounding Divine Silver Sword. As the others prepared to open the sealed door, one female member remained silent, appearing thoughtful about recent events. While watching the group enter the boss chamber, the silent girl recalled Mars's reputation and began doubting the rumors surrounding him. Meanwhile, Mars and Yue searched near the chasm, though Yue believed conquering the dungeon under normal conditions remained impossible. After reviewing the situation, Mars concluded that no ordinary adventurer could clear the dungeon without assistance or hidden advantages. Comparing every possibility, Mars realized the mysterious group had advanced this far without relying on concealment skills or tricks. As the group focused on defeating the general, a sudden attack struck their leader, leaving the silent girl shocked. Moments later, the silent girl panicked when a monster's tentacle wrapped around her body, forcing her to seek escape. After cleaning the recovered pendant, Yue thanked Mars, feeling relieved at last, while Mars felt reassured by her expression. Approaching the sealed chamber, Mars wondered about the group's situation, believing they should have already defeated the general inside. Hearing unusual sounds beyond the door, Mars suspected something had gone wrong despite the group's earlier confidence and strength. While investigating the area near the entrance, Yue noticed strange traces on the ground, drawing Mars's attention immediately. Sensing danger ahead, Mars positioned Yue behind him before forcing open the massive door, preparing for whatever awaited inside. After forcing open the chamber doors, Mars destroyed the attacking creatures immediately and discovered the battlefield buried beneath foul remains. Examining the aftermath inside the chamber, Mars realized one member had disappeared, while a suspicious trail revealed her whereabouts. Following the strange trail across the chamber, Mars found the silent girl covered in slime, trembling and overwhelmed by fear. Promising assistance if she answered honestly, Mars questioned the frightened girl, encouraging her to explain what had happened. The girl confessed that their leader deliberately attracted monsters using special medicine, taking advantage of the creature's predictable behavior. The frightened girl explained that her leader released the monsters intentionally, hoping the approaching tidal wave would justify their actions. As Mars listened, he realized the monster attacks threatening the village originated from the group's reckless and deliberate scheme. Mars concluded that their excuses no longer mattered because the insects had been released intentionally, creating danger for countless villagers. After hearing the full confession, Mars promised assistance, but recognized they were running out of time to intervene. Soon afterward, Mars encountered an enormous insect monster, whose overwhelming size confirmed the scale of the approaching disaster. As the gigantic monster launched a crushing attack, Mars reacted instantly, recognizing the threat before its massive body struck. Although the creature's assault shattered the surrounding ground, Mars observed its durability and concluded defeating it would require effort. After studying the monster's defenses, Yue suggested attacking from within, believing Mars possessed enough strength to exploit that weakness. Mars rejected the suggestion because defeating the general was not their goal, reminding Yue their mission required rapid progress. Remembering a previous encounter on the 13th floor, Mars considered the situation fortunate and activated Spatial Leap without hesitation. After activating Spatial Leap, Mars carried Ye onto the monster's body and prepared a powerful skill from close range. Following Mars's instructions, Yue protected herself while a devastating attack struck the monster and shattered the surrounding structure. The tremendous impact created violent shockwaves across the chamber, forcing Yue and the frightened girl to endure flying debris. As the destruction continued spreading downward, Yue explained that Mars was creating a direct path toward the lower floors. Moments later, an enormous hole appeared beneath them, leaving the surviving witnesses stunned by the unbelievable scale of damage. After the collapse settled, Mars confirmed that his attack had reached the 14th floor, bringing them significantly closer. After reaching the 14th floor, Mars continued drilling downward, determined to create an even shorter route toward the dungeon's depths. While advancing through the massive tunnel, Mars considered reaching the bottom floor directly, despite generations of failed attempts. The frightened girl questioned his method, while Yue explained that people considered dungeon floors unbreakable because nobody had succeeded. Ignoring common assumptions, Mars continued descending through the enormous passage, leaving the others struggling to comprehend his abilities. As the two girls discussed Mars's departure from Divine Silver Sword, they followed behind while trying to understand him. Yue encouraged the frightened girl to judge Mars through her own observations, rather than relying on rumors spread by others. Meanwhile, Mars continued breaking through floor after floor, repeating the same method until he finally reached the 20th level. After destroying the giant snail completely, Mars noticed his progress had stopped, suggesting something unusual existed beneath him. Examining the area carefully, Mars concluded a special floor resisted destruction, while Yue noticed the excavation sounds had ceased. Returning to the others shortly afterward, Mars announced that he had successfully reached the dungeon's bottom floor at last. After hearing Mars reach the bottom floor, Mero struggled to accept that a human could accomplish something considered impossible. Yue introduced Mero properly and explained that impossibility often reflected personal limits rather than absolute restrictions on achievement. Leaving the discussion behind, Mars and Yue advanced across the bottom floor, continuing their search for the dungeon's core. Using Liolos, Mars carried Yue forward, while the enormous remains of the defeated snail stretched across the landscape. As they crossed the bottom floor, Mars identified the giant frog-like creature as the dungeon boss and approached confidently. Remembering Shizuku defending the village above, Mars declared he had no time for unnecessary battles or delays. Without hesitation, Mars launched a massive crystal spear that pierced the giant frog-like boss and ended the confrontation. The hidden werewolf village burned as Shizuku forced her battered body forward, staring at the towering insect creature rising from the flames, gripping the shredded remains of her armor of the fanged wolf, while asking herself what monstrosity had invaded her ancestral home. She reminded herself that the land itself was warning her she had reached the limit of the mana she could borrow, and that even the extended duration granted by Mars's duration enhancement skill was running dangerously thin as the fight dragged on. Memories of the lush green land her ancestors protected flooded her mind, the wooden homes and watchtowers standing as proof of a bloodline she refused to let vanish. Vowing that she would carve a path for her people to survive. She recalled the day she first arrived in a human town and overheard weak voices questioning whether beast folk deserved protection at all, wondering aloud if creatures like her were even worth defending, simply for wanting to keep living. Fury rose in her chest as she screamed for silence, refusing to accept that anyone could simply run away from what mattered, charging forward through the wreckage, while the monstrous shadow loomed ominously over the burning village behind her. She roared that mere breathing did not make someone human, insisting that true humanity was proven through action and sacrifice. Her wolf ears pinned back and her expression twisted with rage as she pushed her body past its limits. She remembered how Mars had known the danger all along, yet still told her to escape and save herself, walking away with quiet resolve, while she trusted completely that he would conquer the distant faraway azure dungeon for their sake. Dust and debris exploded around her as she dashed across the ruined village, dodging the mantis creature's swinging limbs, telling herself she had to hold out just a little longer until Mars returned from wherever his mission had taken him. Refusing to surrender despite exhaustion, she declared that she would keep fighting no matter what, watching the massive insect drop from above with terrifying speed, as it insisted that battle itself was nothing more than its unshakable duty. She slammed into the ground but forced herself upright, gasping that she had actually done it, until a warning instinct told her something was wrong, and dread crossed her face as she realized the fallen creature might only be a general. Towering insect soldiers surrounded her from every direction, their bodies crackling with hostile energy, as she stood alone amid the firelit ruins, overwhelmed by their sheer numbers, and unsure how much longer her exhausted body could keep going. Mars shouted at her to pull back, insisting she had already done more than enough, while she argued that there were simply too many enemies left, both of them refusing to abandon the villagers hiding desperately behind them. Her father assured everyone nearby that the surging power he sensed did not belong to their enemies, right before unleashing his own devastating technique known as Great Ram, sending a massive coiling force smashing through the remaining monstrous swarm. Shizuku called out in disbelief as the dust cleared, and Mars's familiar voice announced that they were back, his broad shoulders confirming the strength she had always believed in, filling her with overwhelming relief after everything they endured. Mars stood silently amid the drifting dust, remarking to himself that the creature looked far larger than expected, before calmly stating that he would handle everything from this point forward. Without a trace of hesitation in his voice, he declared that he had conquered the dungeon completely, confirming that monsters would never spawn from it again, while Shizuku asked urgently what had happened to the dangerous faraway azure dungeon that had threatened their entire village. Mars vowed that he would not let a single monster escape, revealing that according to his god's eye ability, the only remaining creatures were hiding within the village itself and the surrounding valley just beyond its borders. He gently told the villagers to get down, confirming with Shizuku that everyone remaining was gathered safely in the back, reassured further, because her father had already verified their safety, leaving no room left for any problems. Unleashing his storm wind technique, Aeolus, Mars tore through the swarm with a violent spiraling gale, hurling insect after insect into the air, while the entire battlefield twisted apart under the sheer force of his overwhelming power. Combining spatial rupture with cositis, Mars sent every remaining monster spinning helplessly upward into the mountains, leaving Shizuku staring in amazement as the once unstoppable swarm was finally completely and utterly annihilated before her eyes. Mars unleashed his cutting ice blades technique upon the scattered swarm, sending razor-sharp shards tearing through the air as insect after insect was sliced apart mid-flight, their broken bodies falling helplessly toward the shattered earth below. The remaining monsters shattered and burst apart under the relentless assault, wings and limbs scattering across the battlefield as Mars continued carving through the swarm without pause, ensuring not a single creature would survive to threaten the village again. In the hidden werewolf village, still marked by broken fences and damaged rooftops, the villagers gathered inside a modest home to thank Mars and Yue for saving both their daughter and entire settlement. The village chief introduced himself as Asagi, standing beside his wife, while their daughter Kasumi gave her own name, and the family expressed deep gratitude for the shelter provided during such a dangerous and uncertain time for everyone involved. Asagi then made an unexpected offer, suggesting that if Mars wished to take a concubine, he could have his daughter Shizuku instead. Leaving both Mars and Shizuku stunned and flustered by the sudden proposal in front of everyone present, Mars declined, insisting he could not accept Shizuku that way, especially since Asagi reminded him that as his daughter, she held the status of a noble lady belonging to the proud werewolf tribe's royal lineage and traditions. Asagi clarified that despite possessing qualities befitting a king, he could not officially call Shizuku a princess, while Shizuku herself admitted that royal blood did indeed run through her veins, though her position remained complicated and unclear. Curious about the deeper meaning behind their words, Mars asked to hear more details, since the story seemed connected to the ongoing reconstruction efforts happening throughout the war-damaged village, and Asagi agreed to explain everything. Asagi revealed that the werewolf tribe once had a king long ago, but that position had remained vacant ever since their symbolic royal item was lost during a devastating fire that occurred sometime during a previous war between rival territories. However, Asagi added that the vacancy might finally end today, since the very symbol that had disappeared long ago had unexpectedly returned to them, referring specifically to the jewel Mars had shown everyone earlier before the villagers had all gathered together. Mars and Yue both looked visibly surprised as Asagi explained that the jewel represented the three specific individuals destined to sit upon the throne together, forming the foundation of leadership within the entire werewolf tribe's ancient governing structure. Asagi listed the three roles tied to the jewel, naming the heir, who would pass down the position through future generations, the spouse standing beside the ruler, and the king himself, each destined to hold one jewel. At night, Yue expressed relief that everyone had remained safe, admitting she had feared they might have gotten lost somewhere within the treacherous valley, while Mars silently reached toward something resting quietly beside him on the ground. Mars lifted a sheathed sword, and Asagi explained that the werewolf tribe referred to this particular weapon as a katana, adding that whoever eventually claimed the throne would also be responsible for holding this significant blade. Asagi continued, revealing that a blacksmith dwarf once lived among their people long ago, and this very sword had been forged generations earlier by that same dwarf's distant ancestor, using techniques unique to their vanished craft. Asagi explained that possessing both the jewels and the sword together granted someone the rightful claim to become king of the forest, while Mars studied the unusual curved blade, immediately recognizing that no human craftsman could have created it. Shizuku mentioned she planned to give her own jewel to Kasumi, prompting Asagi to insist that Mars himself should be the one holding it instead, causing both to react with visible surprise at his sudden proposal. Asagi suggested that if Mars was searching for somewhere to finally settle down, having heard from Shizuku that he traveled without any fixed destination, then perhaps this village could offer him exactly that opportunity. Turning fully toward Mars, Asagi asked directly whether he would consider becoming their king, and the surrounding villagers, including Kasumi and the others, watched intently for his reaction to such an important and unexpected request. Mars addressed Asagi directly, pointing out that his judgment might currently be unclear after nearly losing his family, and reminding everyone that barely a single day had passed since his arrival within their village. Beneath the night sky, Mars asked whether the werewolf tribe followed a specific law regarding leadership, and the villagers responded firmly that they all agreed on this matter, without any hesitation or doubt among them. Shizuku then explained the guiding principle she once learned, stating that one should never use their strength solely for themselves, but instead dedicate that same strength entirely toward protecting and helping others around them. The villagers praised Mars for using his tremendous strength for their sake, especially since he returned the sacred jewels back to them, without a single moment of hesitation or reluctance, and the entire crowd bowed deeply in gratitude. Every werewolf present lowered themselves in unison, kneeling together across the village grounds, leaving both Mards and Yue visibly stunned by the overwhelming display of respect directed toward them from the assembled tribe members. Asagi explained that werewolves bowed only to those who proved themselves strong and proud, adding that their true wish had always been to place whoever stood at the summit of strength directly onto the throne as king. When Mards asked whether his answer would change even though he wasn't a werewolf himself, Asagi replied that living without shame between heaven and earth remained the wolf race's greatest source of pride, and whoever embodied that principle deserved to rule. Mards realized he had misunderstood the werewolves entirely, since their law stated that even those not born as natural warriors could still strive daily to become the strongest, treating this constant effort as their fundamental way of life. Asagi promised that the entire tribe would hunt beasts until the earth for Mars, asking him to accept the sword and finally let his long directionless journey come to an end within their peaceful village. Mards admitted that his journey truly had no fixed destination, but he had already been considering settling down somewhere for Yue's sake, since she had only just recently learned how to walk properly on her own. Mards reasoned quietly that if he became king of this tribe, Yue would never have to struggle for her daily meals again, and this thought alone made accepting the sword and the throne feel worthwhile. Yue reminded Mards that she had already told him she would be the one responsible for finding a way to make him happy, and Mards quietly acknowledged that she had indeed said exactly that before. Mards reflected that since they had always been alone together, Yue could easily see through him, and she insisted that she wanted him to choose only the path he could genuinely accept for himself. Mards told the werewolves that although he appreciated their witnessing his noble actions, he wasn't the kind of person suited to serve anyone else, since the tribe still barely knew anything about who he truly was. Mards added that he didn't know them either, but in order to properly get acquainted with one another, there was one important question he wanted to ask them directly before deciding anything further. Elsewhere, villagers gathered around a wooden cage holding a captured woman bound tightly inside, and Asagi identified her as someone who had been hiding within the dangerous dungeon nearby the village. Asagi accused this woman and her party of driving the monsters out of the dungeon purely for their own selfish greed, revealing that their actions were the actual reason the creatures had attacked the village, and the woman quietly confirmed it was true. The surrounding werewolves grew agitated upon hearing this confession, and Mards firmly demanded to know exactly what punishment the villagers intended to impose upon this captured woman for the destruction she had caused. One villager suggested releasing her in exchange for the village's autonomy, but another immediately warned that doing so would provoke war, since she served as a soldier under the ruling feudal lord's authority. Others argued it would be better to force her into labor instead, doubting the feudal lord would honor any promise, especially since the village desperately needed extra workers, and the crowd suddenly erupted, demanding she be killed. A crowd gathered as villagers wept over a fallen child, while a caged woman named Tina watched from behind bars, unable to reach the grieving mother who begged for her lost son back. Mards spoke to Tina through vibrations carried across the air, using his skill so only she could hear his voice, asking whether she would act if given a real chance to help. Mards offered to lend his healing skill, explaining it could revive anyone who had died, though he admitted the decision to use it was never truly his to make. Mards warned Tina that borrowing his skill would cost her two things in return, and the first price she would have to pay was tied directly to her own personal ability. The second cost was Tina's lifespan itself, since resurrection drained the user's life force, and lending even 10% of the skill's massive spiritual power would consume her remaining years entirely. Because the skill was unique, with no previous users, Mards admitted he could never verify its true cost, meaning nobody knew how many years or decades Tina would ultimately lose. Despite everything explained to her, Tina never ended up using the skill even once, though combining it carefully with other abilities might have let her use it safely without such danger. The fox-eared elders reminded Tina this decision was far heavier than simply atoning for her past mistakes, warning that reviving the dead could easily result in her own death. With clenched fists and reddened eyes, Tina declared she would do it. Then Mards stepped forward, asking everyone to listen as the resurrection ritual began on the fallen child. The exhausted village elders admitted that only that one child had passed away, gasping for breath while the caged prisoners watched from behind their restraints, waiting for judgment. Since Tina had only restored the exact damage she caused, the elders reasoned a thief returning stolen goods did not erase the crime itself, leaving her fate still undecided. An old fox elder insisted they should let Tina explain herself, though her trembling reaction showed she doubted anyone was truly willing to listen. Another elder argued that deciding her punishment without letting her speak first would be no justice at all, insisting it was ultimately Tina's responsibility to talk her way free. Tina bowed, begging for one final request, pleading to be allowed to heal her captured comrades, using the borrowed blessings of the Seraph skill. Mars recalled her comrades, standing accused as enemies, having done something truly unforgivable to the village. Yet Tina still refused to abandon the people she once fought alongside. Tina cried out that her comrades had fought beside her for 6 years, and Mars reacted with visible surprise upon hearing just how long that bond had truly lasted. The party elders announced their majority decision, mocking that severance pay would rise after the 7th year, then told Tina's comrade to die instead. Mars promised to negotiate with the Duke on her behalf, while Tina admitted she had been consumed by guilt ever since hearing everything Yue-san had told her earlier. Tina begged again to save her comrades too, and Mars answered that he did not care even if doing so meant risking the loss of her own life. Tina thanked Mars, and he told her that refusing to save someone who could still be saved was no different from killing them with her own hands. Mars demanded to know if anyone opposed the decision, asking loudly whether the villagers were truly fine with the outcome. While the fox-eared elders exchanged uneasy glances without offering any objection, the elders admitted using Marrow purely for labor would be wasteful, yet punishing her severely would change nothing, and negotiating with the feudal lord through her still felt premature at this stage. The village head stepped forward and announced that his judgment would now be declared since every opinion had finally been gathered, and the moment for a final decision had arrived. The head declared that the captive Marrow and her party would be given the duty of collecting resources within the dangerous dungeon known as the Faraway Azure as their punishment. Mars quietly acknowledged the decision, noting that Marrow and her companions were experienced adventurers familiar with dungeons, making them the only practical choice available for such dangerous work. The elders confirmed their decision was final, explaining that someday, once the village revealed its hidden existence to the outside world, Marrow's party would return to handle negotiations properly. Mars wondered privately which path Shizuku would ultimately choose, whether reclaiming what was stolen would become her final goal, or simply mark the beginning of something greater. Mars explained that Shizuku was the most fitting candidate to lead the village, though still too young and inexperienced, so he would only loan the throne until she matured properly. Raising his sword high, Mars declared he would become the king of the deprived, vowing to reclaim everything stolen from him and carve out an entirely new future. The fox villagers pledged to follow Mars's path alongside him, and the next day arrived quietly over the distant mountains, as their journey together officially began. Elsewhere, Marrow stood alone deciding to escape immediately, but Yue suddenly appeared, startling her completely, while questioning whether Yue had somehow unlocked the door allowing her sudden departure. Yue calmly mentioned that werewolves possessed far sharper senses of smell and hearing than humans, implying that Marrow's planned escape had likely already been anticipated by everyone around her. Yue admitted that no one intended to stop Marrow's departure, adding that keeping the village's location secret made her leaving quietly the only reasonable option available to everyone involved. Yue revealed the deadly poison inside came from bodily fluid taken from the undying dragon, hoping it could be processed into medicine, capable of restoring the lifespan she had lost. Mars suggested Marrow travel far west to the legendary town of Scholars, believing someone there might possess the knowledge necessary to properly handle such a dangerous and unique substance. Marrow admitted she needed to disappear entirely in order to survive, reasoning that heading west would place her safely outside the country. Unable to reveal the village's secret location, Yue mentioned she carried a message from her master, though she hesitated, wondering aloud whether it was truly appropriate to send Marrow away with valuable medicine ingredients as a gift. Reflecting silently, Marrow admitted that her former group, Sword of Divine Silver, had truly been third-rate all along, realizing how blind she had been to their weaknesses. Ye wished Marrow good luck on her upcoming journey, and Marrow quietly thanked her before turning away, declaring softly that she would finally get going now. Walking away, Marrow asked Yue to tell Mars that she would properly repay his kindness someday, promising gratitude if their paths ever happened to cross again. Boulders crashed down a mountainside as trees splintered apart under the impact, and Mars turned sharply toward the destruction with Shizuku and Angelina following close behind him, both women startled by the violent shaking that echoed through the forest around them. A massive stone golem rose from the rubble, towering over the trees while Angelina studied its crude yet sophisticated construction, explaining that such creatures depended entirely on the caster's skill, since it was essentially a mud doll animated by a pioneer alchemist breathing life into raw earth. Shizuku asked what they should do next, as the golem loomed closer, and Mars immediately ordered her to lead the villagers somewhere safe before a real fight broke out, determined to keep innocent people away from the danger heading straight toward their settlement. Mars stepped forward and vowed not to let the golem advance any further, But before he could act, a mysterious cloaked figure appeared among the broken rocks, asking with unsettling excitement whether he was truly the man known throughout the land as the skill lender. The stranger revealed herself as Angelina, an enthusiastic alchemist who had spent 2 entire months searching for Mars after first hearing his name mentioned back at the Adventurers Guild, and she practically shouted her introduction while striking a dramatic pose among the flowers. The scene shifted to a noisy tavern celebration where Mars was welcomed as the newest member of the Sword of Divine Silver party, though he admitted afterward that he had only sat down because the momentum of the crowd pushed him into the chair before he could refuse. A curious voice asked whether Skilllender was no longer part of the group, prompting a companion to explain that circumstances had changed, and the party was reforming with just the 2 of them remaining, while another guest eagerly questioned what exactly alchemy was supposed to mean. Simonim began explaining that alchemy was often called the transmutation of matter, though they personally believed its truer meaning was closer to making the impossible possible, a definition that captured the strange, boundary-breaking nature of the craft far better than the textbook description ever could. Angelina recalled how difficult the process had been, describing the immense struggle it took before she finally managed to create gold from nothing, admitting that making something entirely new proved far harder than simply improving on something that already existed in the world around her. She reflected that for alchemists, life was a continuous cycle of failure after failure, yet the world still extravagantly praised practitioners for making the impossible possible, a phrase she once doubted applied to her until she pushed through every setback and finally succeeded through sheer effort. Angelina gestured toward a pair of golems nearby, calling them the best and worst creations at once, since their limitless versatility made them capable of nearly anything, and she confessed her deepest dream was to someday discover a task impossible, even for a golem to accomplish. Mars agreed somewhat awkwardly that dreams truly mattered, but Angelina suddenly declared the conversation pointless, and announced she would be leaving immediately, wishing everyone success as she stormed toward the door, while a written notice about the Sword of Divine Silver's official status stood posted nearby. A heated argument broke out as one woman demanded to know why she was being stopped from leaving, while the other snapped back, asking why she was the one forced to announce the rejection, both clearly frustrated as chaos erupted around the half-finished dinner table. Summonon pointed out there was still food left on the table, adding that despite her small appearance, Elia actually ate an enormous amount, and reassured everyone that whatever mess remained would be handled later, since it truly didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. The tension escalated further as one girl recoiled and shouted no while covering herself, insisting everything happening was entirely because of the height difference between them, while the other demanded to know where exactly her gaze was wandering and accused her outright of being a pervert. Furious, the girl declared she wanted nothing to do with a man like that, boasting instead that her blade, named Ultra the Great, could slice through any enemy in a single flawless strike, before clarifying sharply that she had only come seeking Mars the skill lender, not some pervert. Angelina scoffed in response, unfazed by the outburst, and stated that she had absolutely no interest in something like that, her dismissive attitude only fueling the other girl's growing irritation as the 2 continued clashing over misunderstandings. Neither seemed willing to let go. Angelina pressed further, asking whether the newcomer truly failed to understand the real value of the skill lender ability, a question that visibly rattled the self-proclaimed swordswoman, who clenched her jaw and fell silent, caught off guard by the unexpected challenge to her judgment. Nearby, Mars's group considered the golem itself, noting that combined with the skill lender's power they could accomplish almost anything, since the ability's effects appeared truly unmatched, and its user seemed capable, hinting at possibilities far greater than anyone had imagined for the pair. Angelina admitted the real reason behind her long journey, confessing that she had traveled an enormous distance searching for something that neither she nor Mars could ever accomplish alone, a goal driving her forward. Mars's heart pounded uneasily as he stared at the guild board covered in old notices, admitting that even seeing the party had stopped functioning was still no reason for him to walk away from everything he had built there over the years. The elderly guild recruiter recalled how he had once written a contract for her on a scrap napkin the moment they met, and though she had refused back then, he told her she was always welcome to return whenever she wanted to join. Angelina suggested they settle the entire dispute through a game instead of arguing further, and though the swordswoman initially bristled at being called hentai-san, she quietly admitted to herself that the proposal actually made a surprising amount of sense given their situation. A crowd gathered along the street as the swordswoman accepted the challenge without hesitation, declaring boldly that she would bring it on, while Angelina calmly outlined the terms of their one-game match, promising that if her opponent won, she would finally join the party. Angelina noted that pack-type enemies were a terrible matchup against someone as reckless as the uncontrollable Sword Saint, since golems could surge out of the ground as long as loose dirt remained available, giving her an overwhelming tactical advantage. Mars clenched his fist in frustration, realizing that if he ran from a one-on-one duel against an alchemist, his honor would be ruined, and rumors would spread even further. So he knelt, pressed his palms against the dirt, and activated his earth golem to begin the fight.